Guys, let's talk a little Lions football now. Let's do that with one of the greats, Mike O'Hara, DetroitLions.com. Mike, thanks so much for the time, my friend.
Look.
Well, thanks for having me. Hey, look, I used to warm up the same way you did. 3 shots.
Thanks, buddy. Hey, Mike.
3 more at the turn.
Yeah. What's going on, Mike? How you doing, buddy?
I'm doing good, Braylon.
Hey, Mike, I don't think there was any availability today. Do we know what the plan is for tomorrow at all yet, as far as starters go, any rookies, or is this going to be much like kind of the first 2 games where we see a lot of the backups battling it out?
Well, Dan Campbell didn't exactly come and spell it out, word for word, but everything he said indicated that they're going to do exactly what they did in the first two games. And that means, the veteran starters aren't going to play. So I don't think you'll see anything really different than what you saw. But the whole thing is to get evaluated who you have to evaluate and get through it without any injuries and get ready for the next one.
Hey, Mike, I think the Lions are one of 4 or 5 teams, if my math was correct, that have the same head coach and the same coordinators for 3 or more years. How this training camp felt like a team that hit the ground running, and it kind of has gone like that all camp. What do you think the consistency has done for this group, these players on the field, this organization, and just being able to start from day one at camp and kind of get this thing moving?
Well, I think, if you really look back at it and go back from, this is year 3, year 2, year 1, and evaluate it from now and do it backwards, I think what you see is that they knew exactly what they had to do starting out, and it wasn't going to be pretty. And it was a total rebuild. I mean, it's even the quarterback, just every position, there wasn't any, they weren't picking up a team with any continuity at all, and they've built it and rebuilt it. And I think they've done a pretty good job. Now they've got some holes, but I think every NFL team has some holes, but that's what really strikes me is that with the consistency that you talked about, that's the way they've been able to build their roster because, to my mind, offense and defense, they have a consensus on what they ought to do at certain positions with certain players.
Mike, when I was playing, they told us never look ahead, always focus on the game in front of you. It's one season. It's a one-game season, the whole season. But I don't play anymore, so I get to look ahead. I just want to talk about the first 10 games of the season. I'm looking at the schedule, and as I look at it, you're looking at obviously opening up against Kansas City Chiefs and then Seattle back-to-back. But outside of the Ravens, they really have a pretty easy kind of first 10 games of the schedule. What do you think the Lions can accomplish in those first 10 games?
Well, that's good observations by you. I mean, I think it's manageable. I really do. I've heard mixed feelings about for people on – playing the first game against the Kansas City Chiefs. And my whole point in that is just play. Yeah. Play ball. Play your best ball. You might win, you might lose, it might be close, whatever. But just play and play, 60 minutes of clean football. And by that I mean, no false starts, no, that kind of stuff where you're constantly backing up and adding 5 yards. Next thing you know, it's 2nd and 25. But just play good, clean ball, play hard, and that'll, from this game through week 17, if you keep doing that, and the results will take care of themselves.
So in that opening game against Kansas City, what would be a loss that would scare you for the Detroit Lions in terms of how they played?
Well, I'll go back to a game against Washington in 1991 when I think it was 45-3.
Yeah.
45-0. 45-0. It was a shutout. 45-0.
Yeah, Ryan's
I'll give you a quick story there. Washington was kneeling on the ball with about 3 minutes to go, and Chris Spielman ran over to the coach and said, "Run the ball, just please run the ball," because he thought they were being embarrassed by them taking a kneel with time left on the clock.
Mike, I do remember. I went back and did a look back at the '91 season. You're absolutely correct about that. Washington kneeled the ball at the 3-yard line, with plenty of time on the clock. It was wild, but. There you go. That team turned it around. I think they won the next six games or 7 games, something like that.
Yeah, they ended up 6-2, lost a couple, and then ended up 12-4, and then beat Dallas in their first round of the playoffs, and then got beat again pretty soundly by Washington, which went on to the Super Bowl and won it.
Hey, Mo, how's the week been? Now that they're not going to be playing their starters in the preseason, did they hit harder this week? Did they kind of scrimmage against each other? What did you pick up from this past week of practice?
Yeah, Tommy, an interesting point from you. You know what? It took me a little while to catch on what they were doing yesterday, but what they actually did was play a game
Yep.
among themselves. And I think they were in the middle of the second quarter before it finally dawned on me what was going on. But they played a quarter, took a break, played a quarter, took a break. For halftime, I think they took the full whatever. I think it's 14 minutes, and then came back and played two more halves of football. And it was up tempo. It really was. Now it wasn't 100%, but it was up tempo. In fact, talking to one of the offensive players after the game, he said that the defense really sort of handed it to them. So they were playing for keeps to a degree.
What do you think of the rookies so far, Mike, in the limited time that you've seen them? Jameer Gibbs, Jack Campbell, Brian Branch, the rest of the guys. Who's been impressive to you?
Well, first of all, when you said limited time, I thought you were going to hang up on me.
No, not at all. Unlimited for you.
Just to get even.
Yes.
I think it's a really good rookie crop. I don't know if they've got 5 All-Stars or Hall of Famers or whatever, but really good, solid players. And you know what? The best of the bunch. It might be the 5th player that you mentioned there, Brian Branch, the safety, cornerback, nickelback from Alabama that they drafted deep into the second round. Just a high-quality player and a higher quality person. Look, you'd want 90 of these, coming to camp every year. Just a really good ball player. And I think whatever he plays, whatever one of those spots he plays, and he did that at Alabama too, played that way. I think the Lions have a winner. They really do. I'm not saying the other guys aren't,
right?
But this is a guy for deep in the second round. He has really, from the first day he's been here, he's really shown out.
Hey, Mo, I was watching the draft, obviously day 2, when they called him up to the stage, and he was actually in the building. And he changed his clothes from the night before from a suit into something a little more relaxing. But he wanted to be there for his draft day. I told Kathy, this guy, I'm in love with this guy already. It just showed you his heart. And, you only get to be drafted one time in your life. And, Will Levis, guys like that who got passed up in the first round, they went home. This kid stuck around and wanted to be there and get the hug in with Roger Goodell. I just thought that spoke volumes.
No, I agree with you, Tommy. And it's sort of like going across the stage to get your diploma when you graduate from college, too.
Exactly.
It's a big deal. It really is. And you can see him, the way he plays, the way he carries himself. High character, high-class young man.
Hey, I'm talking to Mike O'Hara, DetroitLions.com, longtime beat writer. Mike, we were talking to Lomas Brown a little bit yesterday, and one of the things he was talking about was, depth at defensive line, depth at linebacker, depth at defensive back. And, he didn't say, I don't want to put words in his mouth, but we kind of took that as, do you use one of those guys in areas of depth and try to get a playmaker, try to get a wide receiver, somebody to help build that unit? Do you see Brad Holmes as making a trade, whether before the season or somewhat of a shocker during the season?
Well, I don't know about the timing of it, but I don't disagree with you. I think they're light at wide receiver right now. Part of it's because of injuries. Part of it's because of the Jamison Williams suspension that's coming up. 6 games that they won't have him. But I think they need to pad that out a little bit, or maybe a lot. And however they do it, they do it. But now it's either getting somebody on waivers or making a trade. Maybe the Lions are, in their mind, might be overstocked. Let's just say outside linebacker or defensive end or whatever, and figure that they can use one of those to get a wide receiver with another team that needs a defensive lineman.
Mike, last question. I'm not trying to put you on hot seat. Just asking an honest question.
Oh boy, I can feel it.
Hot seat city.
You feel it?
Hot seat,
You
Mike.
feel it coming? No, everybody's so excited about what the Lions did last year in the 10 games. They're excited in the offseason. They're excited in the draft. They're excited about Dan Campbell, the culture, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. One question that hasn't been asked, Dan Campbell, have you seen everything you need to see out of him? What is the one thing that you want to see Dan Campbell improve on going into the 2023 year?
That's a good question. I mean, nothing really jumps out. I think one thing, he's got a lot of things going for him, and one of them is that he's genuine. So what you see out there with his players is what you're getting. It's not an act. It's not, and he looks, when he looks you in the eye and tells you how it is. That's the way it is. So from that standpoint, look, you've got to win. That's the bottom line. That's what they're out there for. And you can talk all you want about building character and all this other stuff, but But the bottom line is that what gives you longevity is winning games, winning division titles, winning ultimately a Super Bowl, or at least contending for it. So I think he's got a lot going for him, and I think the fact that we talked about the continuity they have in their staff. It's not every coach that they started out with 3 years ago is there, but it just doesn't work that way in the National Football League. Guys move along when they get opportunities, but they've done a good job of keeping their core staff together and keeping their core players together and expanding on it too.
Hey, Mo, you've been around for a couple of years. At least I remember you covered a few of these teams, and we can go back to the 90s when they had phenomenal teams, and you've mentioned it before, how many times they made the playoffs. I think they led the league or were tied with Dallas for most playoff appearances in the 90s. And then that 2010, the 2016 team, the 2014 team especially. And now you got this team. Is this the best Lions team you have seen start a season?
No, I think the 1990s, Tommy, there were more good proven players. Now, look, in another 3 or 4 years, I might look at this roster and look back and say, yeah, they're better. But, they had Herman Moore, who was an all-pro, a record setter. They had Barry Sanders. I mean, I maybe I told you this once before, but I think it was the 1995 team, maybe 95 or 96. I forget which it was, but they had 14 players drafted by the Detroit Lions on that roster who made at least one Pro Bowl. And look, it's hard to get 3 Pro Bowlers on your team, but they have. I think it was 14. It might have been 13, right down to the kicker. So it's hard to match that. But I think on its own, with the way they started, the way this team started, with what they had when Brad Holmes and his staff and Dan Campbell and his staff took over, it's remarkable what they've done in really a short period of time.
Hey, speaking of the kicker, Mo, this is as weak a kicker game I've seen from the Lions in my entire life. I mean, am I wrong? I mean, you have Eddie Murray, you got Jason Hanson. And I forgot who's the guy we got after that.
I saw Eddie Murray last night.
Who was the long kicker that we always had?
Jim Arnold. Oh, you talking about Prater?
Yeah, Matt Prater.
Matt Prater. Jim Arnold was the punter.
Jim Arnold was Mayday.
I didn't know what you were talking about.
I mean, but this kicking game, this could cost you games.
Well, it could. Riley Patterson is really, really accurate. The issue with him is, does he have the big leg? He hasn't shown that yet. But just my opinion, I think he's going to be the kicker, and I think he's going to be accurate. But can he get you the game winner for 45, 55 yards? That has to be proven.
So they're going to go a lot on 4th down from midfield, is what you're telling me.
Well, they don't exactly hate doing that.
I know.
Pretty good at it.
Yeah, I know.
Oh, Mike, we appreciate it, man. We love having you on. Thanks for doing this with us, buddy. Enjoy the season. Hope to talk to you throughout as well.
Thanks, Mo.
We're done. I'm done.
Oh man, dude! If you want to keep going, Mike, if you want to keep going, I will talk to you for the next hour.
Hey, Mike, let me ask you a quick question. I will ask you this:
overtime?
How did it make you?
I was kidding, by the way.
It's an encore, Mo. It's an encore.
You asked for it.
Hey, you asked for it. I was just gonna say, how did it make you feel to see Lomas, get in and see that video? Because Lomas, I've known him basically since 1988, and he's like big uncle for me, and it was a special moment for myself. How did it make you feel to see a guy like Lomas from those '90s teams get in the prime?
Listen, I'm not lying when I say this. I'm getting goose pimples right now thinking about it.
Mm-hmm. How do you know?
Look, I remember when Lomas got signed by the Detroit Lions. He missed the first week or two of training camp, but he reported to the team on I think it was a Friday. It was at halftime of the game against the Buffalo Bills, the preseason game with the Buffalo Bills. He just came walking across the field, and he was Lomas Brown, with the shirt hanging in there, he's wearing a sport coat, shaking hands with people, big smile on his face. Just a tremendous guy, tremendous player. And I'll tell you, he is a whisker from being a Hall of Fame
Yes, he is.
offensive lineman.
Yeah.
Very, very close. I could see him, it'd be a push, but I could see him getting into the Pro Football Hall of Fame one of these decades.
I hope so. You saw what happened with Joe Klecko this past year. I think it'll be for Lomas to be a situation. No, I'm just saying it'll be a situation like Joe
Klecko ahead of Joe Klecko ahead of Lomas.
No, I'm not. You missed what I said. I didn't say ahead of Lomas. I'm saying you see how he got in. It took a long time. I think Lomas is getting like that. Is what I was saying.
I agree with you. I really do.
The great Mike O'Hara, DetroitLions.com. Awesome content there. We invite everybody to check it out. Mike, thanks so much, buddy.
If I must, goodbye.
Always a pleasure.
Oh, he
Mike.
gets off the phone with the quickness this time.
I know, right?
All right, guys.
See you,
Thanks,
Mike.
Mike. We appreciate it, buddy.